Hi, guys, and welcome back to the Female Fitness Podcast. I'm your host, Danny. And in today's episode of podcast, I'm going to talk a little bit about nutrition and building a better relationship with food. Um, and I wanted to talk before I give practical advice for those of you who are working to improve your relationship with food or supporting your clients with that about some of the reasons why you might want to consider working on your relationship with food when you're struggling, because it can be a really difficult process to go through and it can be really uncomfortable, especially if you've been struggling with your relationship with food for a really long period of time and the behaviors you're engaging in have become comfortable for you or something that serves you in some way. And I think that's a really important point is that when you are struggling with your relationship with food and maybe you're using restriction or overeating as a bit of a kind of coping mechanism, it is serving a purpose for you, and that's important to recognize because it's not just like you're behaving in the way that you're behaving for no reason, even though it's damaging. It is serving some purpose. And that's often one of the reasons why we're drawn to staying where we are, or to staying stuck, even if those behaviors aren't serving us anymore when they once have. And it's really important to really think about, okay, why would it benefit me to actually step away from this, despite these behaviors being something that maybe once served me? So food is fuel. It's fuel for, our performance, both mentally and physically. It is enjoyment, a source of enjoyment. It's a source of nourishment. And if you struggle with your relationship with food, you probably don't really feel those benefits. Food might be something that causes you a lot of stress, a lot of noise, a lot of messy thoughts, a lot of discomfort. And it is probably something, if you do struggle with your relationship with food, or if your clients struggle with theirs, it's something that causes you or them a lot of discomfort and feels more of a negative thing than a positive, rather than it being a source of enjoyment and a source of nourishment and all of these things. But it can be something that really adds to your life in so many ways if you work to improve your relationship with food. It's fuel for our performance, both physical and cognitive performance. It's fuel for recovery, for adaptation to training. It's a source of comfort, a source of enjoyment. And that comfort point, again, is quite important because I think that a lot of the time people associate food being used for comfort as a negative thing when it can actually be a positive thing, and it's absolutely okay. You can have a really healthy relationship with food and also seek comfort in food in an intentional way. And that's really important to recognize so that you don't, associate that as being a negative behavior and you don't stop yourself from seeking comfort from food. An example of it being a really positive thing is if you say you're having a bad day and you actively decide to make a really comforting, nourishing meal that you're going to enjoy, that's going to add to your life. It's not going to be a negative in any way if your relationship with food is in a good place. And so that's an example of where seeking comfort from food is not inherently bad. It's just that we don't want to obviously do that in excess. We don't want it to be our only form of comfort. It can be obviously a form of nourishment, both in terms of providing us nutrients, but also in terms of providing us joy, stress reduction, and opportunities for connection. If you have a poor relationship with food and you avoid social occasions that involve food, the quality of the connections in your life are probably not going to be where they could be, and you might be sabotaging yourself from forming new connections with people that maybe you haven't met yet as well. So when it comes to nurturing relationships in our lives, food is often a part of that, and if we have a poor relationship with food, it stops us from nurturing those connections, and that can have a negative impact on our health and quality of life. So I want you to think about how your life would change if you were to get to that place where you can recognize all of those benefits of food and where it no longer causes you stress, noise, discomfort, what are the positives that would come with that? How would that transform your life? And this is, if you're a coach yourself, you might get your clients to think about this as well. So, what opportunities would it open up? What connections would it enhance? What way would it transform your health and your quality of life? How might it affect your stress levels? And could it even free up brain space for other aspects of life? Because once you've done so and you have real life practical reasons why it would be worth it to lean into the challenge of working on your relationship with food, it will improve your probability of being able to follow through with that work and sit with the discomfort of continuing to lean in when it gets hard. It will increase your probability of actually achieving long-term success with improving your relationship with food. So once you've identified your reasons why and given yourself that meaningful drive, that meaningful why, I'm going to talk about now some advice that will help you achieve long-term success with improving your relationship with food. So the first thing is to recognize that the journey isn't going to be linear. You will have days or weeks or moments where you struggle more than others. This is one of the reasons why it's so beneficial to have support throughout your journey so that you don't give up when time gets tough, um, when times get tough. And it's also why it's really helpful to have that strong why, that meaning for the journey, because when it does get difficult, when you do have these days where you struggle, or these weeks or months where you struggle, it will be extremely tempting to pull away from the process of working to improve your relationship with food and to revert back to old behaviors because that's far more comfortable. So, having that support there will help you lean into that discomfort and continue to push forwards. It it's really beneficial to recognize that sometimes as well, there will be uncontrollable life circumstances that increase our probability of struggling with things like our relationship with food and our body image as well. For example, if you've had like a tragic life event happen, or even if you're just going through a really stressful period, that's going to increase your probability of having these struggles. And it's really important to recognize that, so that you can sort of understand why you may be struggling at certain times, and so that you can almost prepare yourself for if you're going through stressful periods. Okay, how can I support myself through this, given I know I'm going to be at an increased likelihood of struggling? But leaning into accepting fluctuations in things like your relationship with food and body image is one of the best things you could ever do for your overall health and for your ability to achieve long-term success. And it's if you can accept these fluctuations and see days where you struggle or weeks where you struggle as an opportunity for learning and an opportunity for identifying, okay, this is where I still struggle. This is something I still need to work on. This is where I need to pin my focus moving forwards. If you can see it as an opportunity for learning and growth rather than a step backwards, it will make those fluctuations, those difficult days, weeks, months, much more tolerable and a much more over the long term positive experience that will contribute to your journey of getting to a good place. Another point that will really help you is just to take it one day and one small step at a time. So don't overwhelm yourself by going from one extreme to the other. Instead, strive for small changes that feel like a bit of a stretch. They feel uncomfortable, yes, but feel doable. They feel an uncomfortable push, but they feel like they're possible rather than completely out of reach. Because if you strive for like overhauling your life, overhauling your nutrition, the way that you behave, you're gonna probably panic and revert back to old behaviors. Whereas if you take it one step at a time and you layer on one little target on top of the next, one day at a time, one little step at a time, you'll be much more likely to stick with it and to not feel overwhelmed. Yes, it will feel difficult, but you won't feel quite so overwhelmed, and you'll be more likely, therefore, to follow through with the process and achieve long-term success. If you're moving from being very rigid and you need to become more flexible, if you're in that boat, it will really help to keep some structure in place as you do so. Structure is not a bad thing, and I think that's a common misconception when it comes to improving your relationship with food is that you need to completely let go of structure. That's not the case. Structure is not a bad thing, but we just want to learn to be flexible with our structures and have structures in place that support us rather than keeping us confined and making us feel, guilty when we deviate from the that sort of guideline. So yeah, take it one step at a time if you're moving from being super rigid to being flexible, and know that it's okay to keep structure in place. Structure is not the devil. It's not something that we need to work against. We just want to make sure that we're able to be flexible with our structures, but it can take time to get there. And so it's okay if you're not there yet. Another really beneficial thing to do, as I mentioned towards the start of today's podcast, it being important to identify how your life will improve if you work on your relationship with food. It's also really beneficial to outline what struggling with your relationship with food right now is actually robbing from you. Like, what opportunities is it taking away from you? How is it hindering you in your life? How is it negatively impacting you? Is it impacting your stress levels? Is it impacting your health? Is it interfering with your sleep? Is it interfering with your connections? Is it stopping you from being able to prioritize the things that you really want to prioritize? Are you spending so much time thinking about food that you just haven't got space for the things that actually matter to you outside of that in your life, for example? So think about what it's currently robbing you of. And last but not least, on these few points today, I want to keep today's podcast quite simple. A solid support system can be an absolute game changer. So rather than shutting down and blocking yourself off from the world, talking to someone you feel comfortable talking to about what you're going through, about the struggles with your relationship with food, such as a friend or family member or professional, such as a coach, or, if you have more severe struggles with your relationship with food, maybe a therapist, maybe a dietitian, can be an absolute game changer. And something that's so beneficial about that is if you do, lean into talking to somebody that you're close to, somebody that you trust, someone that's not going to judge you, it can take the shame that sometimes comes with relationship with food struggles away. It can lessen that shame because when we open up about the struggles we're facing and they're received well, and they're received with no judgment, and they're received with understanding and support, we realize, oh, okay, like maybe I haven't got as much to be ashamed of as I may think. And that can help us with our journey. So, yeah, support is a game changer, especially that from a qualified professional, such as, an appropriate coach, or, like I said, if you have more severe relationship with food struggles, maybe a dietitian, maybe a therapist, something along those lines. But making sure you have support is honestly such a game changer and will help you push through those more difficult times and help you feel less shame and help you feel so much less alone. So please consider that if you are going through that journey yourself, or if you are thinking about going through that journey in the future. And if any of you listening to this are interested in coaching or mentorship, I do have space available at the moment. So please don't hesitate to reach out, as it would be a pleasure to hear from you and to be able to support you through this journey and get you to a place where you truly feel at peace around food and it becomes this amazing positive part of your life and stops holding you back from the life that you truly deserve to live. So if you're interested in coaching, I will pop the link to inquire with me in the description below. You can just head straight there, fill in my inquiry form, and I'll be in touch. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will chat to you next week.